I'm just,
upsets me that
I'm on Moana right now. I think of them just again leaving up into
like this
it's like I'm not naturally doing this.
Yeah.
Ladies. Hi, ladies. Welcome to the Three Fates podcast.
Three fates.
Episode 2.
Episode
Birth,
2.
life, death.
Here we are.
We're
back. Deanne as birth, myself, Pam, as life, Meredith as death.
Death. At your service.
At your service.
Coming in hot from the afterlife.
Weaving with a golden thread. Mm-hmm. What are we weaving today, ladies?
Well,
Let's cultivate.
yeah, I feel like right now there's, we were chatting a tiny bit before, as we do in a deep meeting process. No, we eat snacks and we're like, what do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? But I do actually feel quite a bit of energy asking to come forward in terms of energies that would like to chat, that would like to have a voice, that would like to maybe say something. If you don't know, we all channel. We all have intuitive abilities. And so what that feels like for me right now is I feel energy in my chest, and then sometimes I feel energy behind me. But usually, and I just say this because everyone will experience this differently. Deanne mentioned in the first episode, she gets in her right ear, she'll get some information. And for mine, I feel it in my chest. And then it feels like a pressure that's asking to come forward, and then I will get a visual right after that where it will be like right now it just looks like a bunch of people, and that can change. Sometimes it's a story, but right now it just looks like a group of people, and by people I mean bodies. They're not all earthly, that are just asking to be maybe a part of today's episode.
Fun. Welcome, friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I already have a download.
Great.
Ooh, let's get right in it.
Can I share
Please.
what's come up?
Yeah.
I don't usually channel this energy, but I think it's something to do with tapping in with Meredith, but I'm feeling like a woodland fairy, a lot of woodland energy. Is it like, fairy? I don't even want, is it like nymphs?
They can be, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing some nymphs. I keep hearing that word over and over again. I hear the fairies. And they're really here to greet us in the ascension period that is arising with this Pluto fixing into Aquarius energy. And we're all feeling it on different levels. But they're saying to us that if we can help escape some density that's actually in our air, out, sort of like out of the air up into, we'll go a little wackier, but up into the portals. Like a cleansing is happening of the earth energy, and they're directing, or they're asking for the release of it. Can we have permission to do it? Or we're starting. So it might also be that we're feeling a lot of like heavy, dense pressure. I'm hearing that it's coming in for a lot of people in the head. So there's a lot of pressure in the cranials, a lot of neck tension, a lot of maybe headaches. Because it's like they say that the way the air is moving, or that there's the density leaving the earth at this time, that there's an equilibrium of the pressure. Sort of like they said to me that when we get a storm moving through, or say all of a sudden it drops really, really cold and people go, oh, now my joints are hurting because the pressure is changing. It's like that, but it's energetic. So it's nothing to do necessarily with the weather, but it's the same.
Astrological weather, and a lot of what, again, just to go on to this too, it can look like for people in this transition is belief structure. So if we think of the element of air and beliefs in the mind, right? Conscious thought, unconscious thought, here up. So a lot of what that's asking us on an individual level is to look at the beliefs, look at the structures, look at the systems that are in place right now, particularly on an individual. What beliefs are you holding on to about yourself? And I love that it's the nymph fairy energy, because that is something I've worked on.
Thank you, Meredith, for bringing that in.
You're welcome. They're near and dear to my heart in a big way. And part of, if you think about fairy or nymph, there's an element of magic that's associated with it, and an element of like a bit of the Peter Pan is the easiest one, again, Disney reference, of the idea of like belief, right? The fairies can't be there for you. The nymphs can't be there for you if you don't believe in them. And part of what's happened over this last little while is that as we've gotten denser, as we've kind of gone into this more constricted thinking, capitalist system, like these sort of modalities that we participate in every day in these systems is that has come at the cost of a lot of the belief in magic and the belief in these other energies that are there as well. And so in the releasing of these beliefs, these constructs, like magic is real, right? You can begin to engage in them, because if you put up a strong, like we get free will here, a strong, I don't believe in you, I don't believe in that, then they can't help you in that way. And so allowing ourselves to do that is a lightening of that consciousness and an invitation into magic.
And I'm also being shown, even with air right now, like how much traffic there is in our air in the modern age with, of course, cell phones and Wi-Fi's and all the things. So there's also like this asking of like, how do we come out of the static of that? So it's like working on, are we moving so we're just above it with our consciousness? And like there's an asking of like starting to problem solve a little bit about the air pollution, like the frequency pollution.
I can feel the trees coming in right away and being like,
Yeah.
come to the trees.
Yeah.
Come
Well,
to
it's
the
also
forest.
like, I feel like in our life process, there's multiple cloakings. There's always cloakings. When we want to expand, there's some resistance, whether again, it's in constructs of energy or people or different forces coming in, whatever that looks like. But the cloaking in pollution is also part of it. Doesn't want that air to open. So it wants to keep it sort of trapped. Like, we don't want to change too much. We don't want to lose that control and have too much opening. So I get even a sense that when people even talk about, like, say, chemtrails, for an example, we'll just go into some of that controversy, but it's like kind of feels like a little bit of that's also a cloaking. Like don't let that air open or escape out and create more of a connection as well. So then we'd probably also look at, like, I'm just seeing a mirror in all these people just from a session perspective, is like a lot of detox in the thyroid, pituitary, and pineal. So just a lot in those upper chakras. And I love that you said magic. And now I'm just on a huge tangent. Sorry, I'll be really quick with my
take your
tangent.
time.
But when you said magic, because that's the third eye, that's a lot of our imagination that is deeply connected into our magic of what we see and sense and feel. So it makes sense that it's like all in this area.
I'm going to burp, and usually Steve's burping.
Yeah.
But in the magic sense, and that reminds me of course, like imagination and childhood and all the magic that
Maybe
we,
that's
I
the
think we
innocence
all, the
thing that
innocence.
you were
theme.
That's the innocence theme.
Because as the innocence theme, and this is so interesting, because in the last like 30 seconds or minute or whatever, I had this little one just jump onto my lap right now. And she's this little girl, and she's just sitting right here on my lap, just, I don't know, like 3 years old. And she's just very present and whispering in my ear a little bit about just kind of saying hello and being really present.
Says,
And
spread the magic, Pam.
spread the magic. And she's also kind of has this presence of like reminding me to remind everyone that like it's for them. Like, makes me look really emotional, actually, thinking about the next generations coming in, thinking about what is happening in the planet, what we're leaving the planet like, and for these innocent children that are coming in. And she's just kind of sitting here going like, don't forget that I want magic on this planet for when I come in.
Yeah.
Like, she wants the magic to still be here.
Well, and prior to us, we always cultivate a little bit of, like we said, energy and agenda slightly. And I was like, I just keep hearing innocence. But even like when I tap into like this woodland energy, pertaining to all woodland creatures and the fairies and the nymphs, it feels very innocent to me. And they don't ask because they're angry. They're not coming to me saying this has to be done. There's nothing forceful with them. They're just like, could we please? Like, and it's very like loving and, to me, that innocence. And I am also hearing to approach this new era that we're entering, because we're ending pretty much a 12-year period and entering into this Pluto Aquarius. And as we just talk and normalize and see what that's like, is like, it's okay for us to still be in our innocence, to ask questions, to still be, we don't have to all of a sudden feel like we have to be in it and look at like I'm so awakened or something. We're all still going to have questions of innocence.
Yeah.
And to turn to and ask the energies surrounding us to help support us in their innocence. So the little children, the woodland energy, to guide us in and to be gentle with ourselves. Yeah, were you going to say something? I was like looking at you and I'm like, is she going to talk? She looks like she's going to talk to me.
No, it brings back the idea of storytelling. My original handle was intuitive storytelling, and the importance of storytelling on Earth. It's been an oral tradition since the beginning of humanity and such earlier than that. But the handing down of stories, right, is the way of learning, a way of passing knowledge, the way of allowing ourselves to evolve on this planet. And so I remember when I first started tapping in, it has always felt very true to me that Earth is very much a nursery. You know, it's a nursery for souls to come and evolve and to learn about themselves and to continue to develop what it means to feel like in a vessel, what it means to feel emotions, what it means to have like the magic. And like, if you think about spirit coming into form, that all of a sudden this energy out there is concentrated into something and it can actually have like the senses, like it knows what touches, it knows what like snow feels like, it knows what rain smells like, it has all of these sensory experiences that are quite unique to this planet. And in that there are a lot of people here to help cultivate that energy and that nursery energy. And if you think about children and they have that touched into that sense of magic, right? And you want to encourage it. You never want to tell children that, you know, that something isn't real, really. I mean, some people do. I know there's parents that say don't do that. But in general, cultivating that curiosity, cultivating that questioning, cultivating is that invitation into experience. And to be human is to experience. And so allowing yourself to develop safety and openness to experiencing is a huge part of like innocence, and it doesn't end, right, as we age. And so part of creating a space where we do allow ourselves to have innocence, where we do allow that magic to exist, is part of our responsibility right now to allow that to be.
And maybe more than ever, it's about finally giving permission for our inner childs to always be at play in this Aquarius. That they're playing as much as we're having fun, and that maybe those deep, profound questions are coming from that place.
I think this year is really like calling in a huge energy of play and adventure, and kind of like how can we do this work also with play. I think with Pluto being in in Capricorn, that was more of like
Structure.
And more like kind of moving into the past and the shadow work and kind of like what
Exposing what isn't here.
like the undercurrent
the
of things.
structures. Yeah.
Whereas like with Pluto being in Aquarius now, it's kind of like, what is the future going to bring? Like, what do we want the future to look like? And it's like versus Capricorn being, let's clean up the past and let's kind of get that.
It's kind of like show us why it wasn't working, right?
Yeah.
In some ways, like show us what about these systems, what about our beliefs, what about the way we're conducting our lives, the way we're cohabitating with the planet and the earth. Well, how is that like maybe not working, right? And then how can we bring that back, and play is so powerful. I'm the worst at it, but I look forward to learning.
Well, it's interesting because Pluto always, it's like the shadow planet. It always kind of the way it runs, it always has a feeling and energy of like wanting to stir up what's not being seen.
Yeah.
So to do that in Capricorn is a very different energy than to do it in Aquarius. So how can we expose the undercurrent of things, or the hidden things, or the secrets that are not helping humanity in like a more uplifted way, if that's possible? Like, why not?
Can you, right now, there's just invitation. What secrets did you have as kids?
Oh,
What secrets?
Yeah, like what's a secret that you had as a kid that's coming, but you were like, I can tell nobody. But now you look back and you're like, oh man.
Gosh.
I've actually told a lot of my secrets already, but I had a big one for a long time with my mom.
Tell me. Do you feel comfortable? Sorry, consent is real. Do you feel comfortable sharing
I
your
can share.
secrets?
This is pretty funny.
Yeah.
And I told my mom, I was a secret I had. I was probably in kindergarten when I started lying about this, and I was about 14 when I fessed up.
Nice.
I wonder what era that was in.
I don't even know, but I was a really picky eater, which is kind of funny because I'm not so much anymore.
Thank God.
So there's
The
hope,
worst
there's
type
hope
of
for my
people.
children.
There are hope.
Okay, good.
Well, the only thing I wanted to eat was honestly toast, like buttered
I get it.
bread.
I
That's
get
all
it.
I wanted.
Here,
And,
here.
you know, Mom would cook
me some
dinner,
carbs.
right? Give me some carbs and some butter. Spread the
Spread
butter.
the butter.
Spread the butter.
Gosh.
And I Mom would cook dinner. I'm like, no, I don't want it. And I guess maybe one day, I don't remember this, I might have had a stomach ache. So I said, oh, I have a stomach ache, I can't eat. And she goes, okay, what do you want instead? And I probably said, toast. And it worked. And so I think I must have used that all the time. Like, I have a stomach ache. I can't eat. I'd rather just have toast. And Mom's like, oh my gosh, like what's wrong with my child? And she would, oh my God, we went to like every doctor, like specialists, and I was young. I don't even remember even when I started this. I just remember like my first memories of doing it, but I don't even know when I started. To the point of like getting really personal here, like stool samples and like
She must have a parasite. Like something's going
all
on.
the things, and of course the doctors found nothing.
Yeah.
And then I
Maybe some malnutrition, but
and that was pretty much it. And then I kind of would have grown out of it, I guess, but it lasted years. And then I was at the doctor's office when I was about 14, and I just saw my like file sitting on his desk, and it was really thick. And I'm like, why is this file so thick? I'm like 14, and it was like open, and I kind of like peeked at it, and there was like all this like reference to like all these stomach specialists. I'm like, oh, right.
Okay, so I want to challenge you with this. Energetically looking back, what do you think that was?
Adjusting to earth.
Adjusting to earth. Okay, yeah.
The food was so weird.
You know what I always say? So, especially with souls that are more like interdimensional, like so say that aren't earth souls or from the angelic realm, so interdimensional meaning other galaxies, planets, star systems, is I always say like something in just like the earthly way of life, like sleeping or eating or like pooing and peeing, all of those things, like something in that is usually hard to adjust to here. Because it's like, I remember hearing my second daughter, Juno, as an infant being like, oh my God, I have to poo here. Like she was so embarrassed that she had to
eliminate elimination
into her diaper. So I was like, oh, that was her thing, right? So anyways, just to add to that, I see it a lot. It makes sense.
And it was probably, I can't remember what age it was that I started just to try things and kind of grew out of it.
Yeah.
But I remember getting like medication that was just kind of, as like a 5-year-old, would just kind of throw away. Like, what am I doing? That's like ridiculous. And
What did your mom say?
Oh my God. After the doctor, when I saw the file, I was like, oh my gosh, oops. So like that same day, I'm like, Mom, I got to tell you something. You know, when I was a kid and I would had stomach aches, and she goes, yeah, you never knew what happened. Like, I don't know what was going on with you. And I was like, well, I wasn't really telling the truth. She's like, what? And I'm like, I just didn't want to eat dinner, and I'd rather have toast. And she just like, she kind of like looked shocked. She didn't say a word. Her jaw did drop. And she's like, do you know how serious this is? Do you know if you ever had like some sort of insurance issue happen with your stomach, and now they're never going to believe you because you made up I'm like, oh my God, where's this going? So she just, anyways, to this day now, after my little lecture of lying on medical reports, that is not okay. She laughs about it and tells the story often now.
That's hilarious.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think now I try to make up for that time by eating everything.
Well done. Well done.
Anybody else? What do you got, secrets?
I don't know if I can really think of one. I mean, kind of off the heels of that, I used to flush my vitamins a lot. My mom had these horrific chewable multis, and they don't make them.
They
like
weren't the
they
Flintstone
do now.
brand.
Those were like candy compared to the ones I had. These were like honkers. They were just so vile, and I had to like kind of like chop them up to get them flushed down the toilet.
Oh,
right?
that's dedication. That's
commitment.
like, yeah.
Yeah. So that didn't last very long. And did she ever find out? I don't know. She probably, I don't know. And that to me is like so minor. I'm having a hard time thinking what I lied about.
But even then, I'm feeling like that innocence.
Even
of,
if
like,
you didn't
getting
lie,
tried.
did you have a secret? Like, I can't tell anybody about this.
Something comes up, but it's like it's like it's so vulnerable.
Okay, well, you don't have to share if you don't want.
I mean, I can because it's not really like a big thing, but it has to do more with my sexuality.
Okay.
And not about my preferences, but as a young child, like understanding my sexuality really, really young, like 3 or 4 years old, being able to climax, like just that kind of stuff. And like not knowing that I was supposed to not do it.
Right.
Versus do it. So it's like kind of just like doing it wherever. And in a way, it's kind of, I guess, healthy, you know, discovering that. But like, honestly, that has come up a couple of times, like 5 times in my head now since you asked that question.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, I guess I'm supposed to share that. So maybe it's also just talking about it from that perspective of like sexuality in its innocence too. Yeah. And it like, you know, kind of being like this secret thing, but how natural it sort of was or is, but that like it can start really early too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what comes up to my mind is that secret.
That's
Amazing.
awesome.
And I think also not having the capacity to understand sexual energy that young, because you're not like, it's not like, you know, I think in my mental mind, I wasn't thinking like sex either. So it's not like you're having a sexual conversation at that age, but it's also, my parents were probably like, we gotta have this conversation with this kid already. Like she's like so young, right? Yeah. So not knowing how to put context to something that just feels good.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so interesting, even
Aren't
just
you
in the
glad you
topic of
asked?
like innocence.
Yes.
No, actually I am. Because it's like the idea of innocence with new energies, new experiences, new sensations, right? And what constructs, coming it back to the other one, are in the way, are immediately put upon that. So like for me, Catholic Church, like shame, guilt right away for that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so how that right away would make it heavy or dense, right? In terms
Right.
of like engaging with that kind of energy, which could be sacral energy, which could be creative energy, which
Yeah.
could be like, you know, all these different things. Like,
Well, and I think when I think about it, I was such an open channel as a young kid. Like I would hear spirit, I'd see spirit all the time as like really, really young. So it would make sense that probably a lot of my chakras were very open, maybe prematurely, than when they naturally do sort of, you know, do open, which is in every 7-year period, quote unquote, starting with a base chakra, right? So 0 to 7 in base and so on and so forth. So perhaps I came in a little bit more open where that was activating and not knowing why that activation was happening, not having the emotional capacity to understand it. But there it is, and there's innocence in that and pleasure too. So, yeah.
hot topics. Hot topics, pleasure and innocence.
Just getting started.
Just wanted to have butter on toast, guys.
Yeah, I get that.
That could be the equivalent of an orgasm,
yeah,
though.
That was my pleasure.
That is a type of pleasure. Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
older than 3, and I was like, I just spread the butter. That's all I wanted to do.
You already knew.
Yeah, I did.
It's your fault. We're all
I
here.
know.
That's awesome.
Mine's are totally different, and they're kind of funny. I mean, I have so many secrets. I love mystery, so like I was a very secretive child. Out in the fields, hiding, stealing stuff.
Where's Meredith?
Yeah. I think I was hiding in this like long grass where you could clearly see
just
me
see
from the
your
window.
eyes.
Yeah. These are like one came, just the food one reminded me of a really quick one. My mom used to make these like, you know, I'm 41, going to be 42. So it's like 80s baby, 100%, born in 82. And microwave meals, huge in the 80s. And mom would make these muffins in their microwave that I don't remember clearly because I was probably like 4 or 5 in like a bucket. She'd pre-mix like the thing and then just like throw them into these things in microwave in the morning for our like hot breakfast. And sometimes they would cook and sometimes they weren't. And I lived in a trailer at this point, and the trailer had the wood paneling with like a curtain. So I would like take the muffin, scoop out the raw part, lift the curtain back and smear it on the wood panel and then put the curtain back. Yeah, and she wouldn't know till you cleaned it. It was like, what the hell is this? And I would just be like,
The mystery sauce. Yeah.
But then, and so I do stuff all the time now. Thinking about it, I was like, oh, I was a very good kid, but also like I'm busy. She was busy when I tapped into like little Meredith on the farm. Like she was doing lots. And I remember one time, like we had all of the food was like kind of high on the shelves and stuff, except for one like pantry, and I could just reach the shreddies. And so there was a period in our life where I had convinced, I had a bunny named Bashful. He's my sweet little dwarf bunny, and thought he was lonely. So we managed to get 2 spayed female bunnies. Turns out they were not spayed. And so for a spring, we would have like 50 bunnies, because the whole idea of like, you know, fucking like rabbits, it's like made for real, like that.
Yeah.
Like by the time you see,
They were feeling the pleasure.
by the time you see
AUD.
a batch of babies, there's already another one,
Yeah.
right? And so these female ones had gotten under the trailer and were basically feral. Like my dad eventually had to go with like welding gloves and like pull them out to stop my sweet little Bashful from, you know, having love. But these bunnies were everywhere. And so we would sell them, and my brother would chase around with like fish nets to catch them for people, because we sold eggs at the same time. But I remember I really wanted to feed these bunnies one day, and the only thing I could reach was shreddies. So I took all these like box of shreddies outside, and on the end of the trailer was a big propane tank, and they were all under there. So I put all these shreddies out, and they started to eat them, and I was like, this is awesome, right? And then I came back the next day and they were dead. There was like 3 or 4 that had died, and I don't know if it was because of a chemical. Like, I don't think shreddies actually kill bunnies, but for myself,
maybe it's jagged.
I don't know.
Like, in it perforated?
Maybe.
Their
I
stomach.
don't, well, I mean, maybe they didn't chew properly. Anyway,
Went really,
according to like
gruesome.
6-year-old Meredith, murderer, bunny murderer, right? And I remember being like, oh my God, I can tell.
This is why her name is
no
Death,
one.
aka.
Yeah, seriously, I was introduced to the dark arts young, and but I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my
massacre.
parents till like I was like 30, where I was like, I killed bunnies as a child, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I would like sometimes go back and their skeletons would still be there because I was like, did that actually happen? Yeah, it
That's
did.
actually kind of vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just let you know that I'm a murderer.
I know.
I confess.
It's very vulnerable.
On live socials.
Maybe there was poison put down. Like, did your parents ever say
It was
they
the
put poison?
80s, probably.
Yeah.
Poisoned everything. And then under like the propane tank, I think, maybe there could have been like some leak or I don't know, the chemicals down there. I don't know. I actually
Yeah.
probably don't think that I killed them, but in my heart,
You
in my
thought.
mind, I was a bunny murderer
Yeah.
and I could tell nobody of this because this was way worse. But yeah, I used to do stuff all the time and not tell anybody.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love how this was the death story.
Yeah. Well,
Makes sense.
but yeah, I used to do stuff all the time and not tell anybody.
Oh man,
It's great. Love a little mystery. I mean, and right now when I'm picturing it, they're like, you weren't alone. I was like cruising around with my whatever,
Yeah.
like animal friends and spirits and
Yeah.
climbing on
The
roofs and
woodland
falling
creatures,
off
yeah.
ladders.
I was always
Getting into
too
trouble.
afraid.
Yeah.
I was afraid to
Were you
get in
afraid of
trouble.
cat?
I was so afraid.
I was
I
pretty
was
straight-laced,
terrified,
too.
but I was smart, so then I knew how to like hide it.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah,
didn't
because
do
I wasn't
anything.
like a prankster or anything. Like, I wouldn't do that type of energy. Like, to me, it's like you're on the fine line of like, I want to see what the reaction is,
Yeah, sure.
right? Or like, and it's
Except I
comedy,
would
but
tell
prankster.
nobody.
Yeah, and so, and for me, it was like it just didn't even cross my mind. I think I was like the worst liar, right? Like you could just tell a mile away if I did something wrong. Like, I just couldn't keep it, and it would like destroy me.
It was, it's like
Maybe
lying
that's
too,
why.
because it's like when you're sensitive people and you could feel the field so clearly. Like if I ever tried to lie, I would like feel the rippling effect of it come off my body and then how it would reach another person. And I'm like, they can't believe me because it's, you know what I mean? How are they not feeling the vibe right here? It was so clear that I was like, it is impossible to lie because the sensitivity just didn't allow it. It was just too obvious. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
I'm like, I got no problem.
I'm
a very integral person, but I was like,
let me
no
take
problem.
that back because I lied. I just told you a whole story of lying.
Yeah, that's
That-
true.
that
That's
is
true.
So I don't know
In
what
many years, yeah. And now that I'm thinking about it,
Oh, here we go. See?
no,
Let's just crack that open. We're all a bunch of liars. I'm too innocent.
I do. I remember being in grade 3, and this girl had this toy that I wanted, and it was this little egg thing that when you popped it open,
Was
it
it
was
the Kinder Egg?
No, it wasn't chocolate or anything. It was just like a plastic toy and it had a keychain. But when you kind of opened it up, it was like this whole little magical world inside, almost like a Polly Pocket, but it wasn't a Polly Pocket.
Okay.
And I just thought it was so cool, and I was like, I want it. And so we were sitting down for reading time, and I saw it laying there on the floor, and I grabbed it and I put it in the palm of my hand, and I stole it from her. And I remember the teacher going, "Okay, I can't even remember her name. Where's so and so's like thing?" And I don't know. It was like, and at this point, it was more like pride. I was like, I cannot reveal that it was me now, even though inside I'm like, I wish I could take it back. Like I did have that feeling. Wish I could take it back. But I wanted, it's like, I'm like, it's too late. It's too late. I cannot
burning in
reveal
your hot
that it's
little
me.
hands.
So I took that one to the grave, man. Like I brought it home. I think I even like hid it or something. I may have thrown it out just to like get rid of all evidence. She never got her fucking toy back. Sorry, whoever that was. I can't remember. But it was this little.
We're going to get a message now from her.
That's the other comment
She's
that we're going to
hated
get.
you. Yeah.
The second comment. It's my egg you took. And it was just, it was just a cool toy. I wanted it. So, I mean, I have done some shady shit, I guess.
But like, can we just for a second think about this sort of stuff too? Because when we think about like good kid, bad kid, judgment, shame, we talked about like the innocence of like experiencing all of these energies, right? And so it's because of like the moral code or our beliefs or societies or something like that that tells us about that. But when we dive into it, I think we all have a lot more experiences than we think, or even just the experience of lying, or the experience of like shame, or the experience of
Killing bunnies.
No, it makes sense. I look at that as the scale of polarity.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So that to me, that's what comes up right away. My guide showed me that sometimes we need to experience something that might be very extreme or what would be deemed in society as not correct or whatever to understand that I'm not really that.
Yeah.
And then usually I find in human behavior and polarity is that we jump to like the way other end spectrum. And then we're like, oh my God, I can't like never keep a secret ever, you know? And so then we have to find what's our neutral, what's our in-between ground. So this is what comes to mind when I think of this, is that a lot of these things aren't because we came in with ill will or ill intention, but to experience that I am not that.
Yeah. Which is also ties into our original idea of like looking at judgment and judgment itself, right? And like the return of innocence. Enya, did anybody know that song?
Yes.
Return to Innocence.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God,
Enya's
blasted it.
What song?
Blasted. Oh God.
Am I?
You're gonna
What?
you're
This
gonna
I'm
is
an
like
80s
Disney.
baby too, but can you sing it for me?
Absolutely not. No, but I will play it for you. Robin, can you pull that up?
Robin,
Can you find this?
we
on
need our
Return to
producer
Innocence?
to get us linked
It's
into the
a
audio.
classic one. Anyway, Enya is incredible. She lives in a castle. She made all this money singing all these incredible songs, and then just lives like in this castle in the UK, like isolated, doing whatever she wants. It's
Nice.
incredible. Anyway, the point being of that becoming aware of judgment as itself, as an energy, and then how that can impact innocence, right? And once we're told something, how does that impact our innocence? And then how does that limit then our ability to connect in with fairies, to connect in with magic, to connect in with all these other different experiences? So it's almost like taking, I think Pam, you had mentioned before, like, can we come out or look down, like come above the cloak or above that and actually be aware of these energies and pressures that are influencing our experience, right? And then once you name them as such, I think like when you were talking, Deanna, it was like a lot about, well, that is healing. Is that healing? You know, when you look at these experiences that we've had and bring them into perspective and integrate them into our everyday life, is that not healing in some way, right? Or what some people might name that as such. Not that there's anything wrong with this in the first place, because I don't really think healing is something's wrong or broken. I don't subscribe to that. But
that makes sense actually.
Well, even thinking about like, so my stomach thing as a kid. So you think about like, how does that then going to help now with like moving, like, so Gene Key's judgment goes into integrity, goes into the city of perfection. Gene Key 18, reference right there.
Do you want to give a little side note on what the Gene Key stuff is?
yeah, what is Gene Keys for people who don't know?
Gene Keys are 64 keys written, it's actually written by a guy named Richard Rudd. He was a student of human design and of the I Ching. And he, I think in 2007, he had this like 4-day episode of just ecstasy where he went into like pure, just like consciousness of channeling and like Christ conscious, the whole thing. He just downloaded this whole modern codon, I guess, really of the 64 keys, this combination of the I Ching and the human design that is more approachable for a self-study. So you can really understand.
So they're modalities for self-study.
Self-study, yeah. Okay. And so the life's work, which is the top sphere, when you look at your profile, is my conscious life's work. Is like, which key am I really working through for my life's work, which actually is the key of judgment. So it goes from the shadow or the lower vibrational state of judgment into the gift state of integrity, into the Siddhic or the higher vibrational state of perfection. And I was like, okay, well, if I was going to use like judgment on even the food, for instance, that I was being given as a kid and not wanting to eat it, then I was like, well, how do we bring this into integrity? Like, what can that teach me now, or to think about parenting or all those kind of things? And I was even trying to think about like, you know, if the kids are having this trouble assimilating into earth and they're having like fears about food or pooping or all these different things, and how does then the parent bring integrity into that versus like just eat the food? Like, how do we then like move into integrity with that child's soul and their experience and what's really happening, tuning into like, this kid just can't eat food right now. They can't assimilate this food. It is just too it's too emotionally hard for them. Maybe that's why they're talking about stomach aches. It's a pain of some sort, like for their system. So how do we bring that awareness in that integral way? To like listen a little bit deeper to when kids are kind of saying these things versus just like hurry up and assimilate. And so that's just kind of interesting. And then of course that perfection acidic state just really truly means everything is perfect
Yeah.
already as it is, because it's all here for learning. Yeah.
I love that. I feel like I want to put in a plug too for the types of food that we eat and grow. And one of my big passion sides is agriculture, right? And food and learning how to grow stuff. And a lot of my trauma and work in this life is around food and how we consume it, how we prepare it, how we grow it. And I think that's because I am so connected to earth energy and environmentalism and like that sort of thing. And I've noticed that certain children, depending on the foods that they're eating, and myself included, I think they're a bit more sensitive to how that food was prepared, how that food was grown, what is the energy that it carries, because food is alive, or it could be alive, right? And so how we grow stuff, we're not separate from that. And I think a lot of what we come against is the disconnection to the planet Earth. And one of the ways that why we do poop and why we do eat and like why do we have to do all this maintenance on the human form, right? Why do we not do well if we don't drink water? Why do we all of it's an invitation to connect with Earth itself. Right?
like
So
that.
it's that invitation to connect to the elements, right? Earth, where wind and water, through a daily ritual and a daily practice of literally consuming energy. And so I think sometimes, especially when I see like sensitive children or children that are aware, they're more in tune with that, and they can have a harder time. And they're also more sensitive to a lot of like the highly sugared foods and things like that. They'll get addicted quite quickly to that sort of like buzz and kind of overstimulate their nervous system. So I think it's interesting too, and why one of the reasons what I'm called into is to try to create systems and places where we can connect to food that's grown like that, because I do think that ties in even with stomach and that energetics of like, it's hard to eat here. It's like, what is elimination? Why do I have to eat again? Or like, what are these sort of things? It's bringing that invitation to connection.
Totally.
I've never seen it from that perspective. And yeah, I really like that. I work with, there's certain souls that I connect with in the spirit baby realm that will literally, and they're usually a specific race, but they'll usually say to me, not race here on earth, higher self, soul race, but they will say like, I am going to be very sensitive, so bear with me in my adjustment. There's some that don't have that, and there's some that come in, and it's not the labels we put on them here. It is just that that vibrational difference too. So it's interesting. And I usually try to, from then a conscious parenting perspective, just let the client or the parent to be, no, you got this type of soul coming in. So just be a little bit more honoring of what they need. And their body will probably tell you, or they're, not going to like a lot of toxicity. It's going to be really hard on them or their body.
It's like for me too, like for the like food with like love in it. It's not even about, I realized I had a lot of like, I did actually have a lot of stomach stuff growing up. Like I did, it's true. I ended up having like, I thought it was normal to bloat.
Yeah.
Like I used to think, like I used to like eat a meal and then I would go into the bathroom and I would watch my stomach just really descend. And I thought that was really normal to look like after a meal, like to be 5 months pregnant. Like I thought that was really normal. I thought everybody had that. And it wasn't until
Food
like
goes in, stomach goes out.
I just thought that was part of digestion. And I realize now, so as I am actually eating kind of all foods right now, and I had to do the whole no dairy, no gluten thing for a long time. And I realized, but my older sister, she's an incredible chef, like world-class chef. And it doesn't matter. There was a thing I had, even though I wasn't eating gluten and dairy at this one point, I would have no rules with her food. I would just eat anything that she cooked. And I'd go to the restaurant she was at and I would just be like, yep, no, this is cooked with such love. And I know the way she would speak to the earth and how she cultivated, and she was farm to table, and the relationship she had with the farmers. And I just knew her process so deeply that the plate was so alive in front of me that I would just eat it and I would feel freaking fantastic. And I started to think about that. I'm like, it's not the food, it's the vibration behind it. Absolutely. And my stomach wouldn't do this big distension thing. It was just who created it, what was the intention, what was the love on that plate. And so, yeah, that taught me a lot.
I love that.
My husband, he likes his junior bacon cheeseburgers from Wendy's. And I was like, yeah, oh, in my head, I'm like, oh, that's, good, nice. He's like, I just infuse it with a ton of love before I eat it. And he's like, the vibration is perfect for me. And I was like, all right. And it was like, yeah, I got to do that more, And he has no guilt with it, and he doesn't have food issues. He doesn't have sensitivities with food. He doesn't feel shitty after he eats that. Like, he's like, it's infused. He does this like, he says, this all comes from down. He's like, I feel it. I just infuse it into my burger. It's like, nice. Over here, I'm eating my like dry fucking salad. I'm like, sure, I'll have more feta and pecans on there. It's like, I want a burger too.
Yeah. Burgers are great.
Mm-hmm. Burgers are great. And they have some I'm gluten-free. So they have some more gluten-free options now, which is really, really nice. But yeah, infusion and made with love is real. And I think the land is really important, and you can do a certain amount of overriding when you go to eat it and how you prepare it. But source is very important of where it comes from. So I love that you hold space for that. You honor those spaces, and that we're seeing that instant communication between soul and acceptance of earth through food and water and resources.
Yeah, and it's not limited to eating, right? It's unlimited to like
everything. Yeah.
Like we have a cold plunger here.
You do?
This guy.
I wanted to ask Robin.
He just
cold
I thought you said you have like a cold plunger tank here.
No, I walk outside and I cold plunge myself into the
snow.
The work.
Yeah.
But that idea of like sensation, right? And sensation and like intimacy, essentially intimacy with elements, with earth, with life. Like we're not meant to be in boxes, in houses, and not like interacting with all of the things that are out there. I'm not saying that everyone's going to resonate with that, but there's different ways in which you can go outside. There's different places that will speak to you, right? There's different ways in which you can engage with the world around you that involve nature, that involve sensory experiences, right? On your skin, in your body, like all these sort of things that's kind of the reason why we're here, right? In a lot of ways. And so I'm even just feeling like an invitation to like infuse spaces that you go to, whatever that looks like, with love, or whether you're buying flowers and like just be in intention with them for a bit and just feel what that is to connect with that, or your lawn or a tree. I love trees. I'm going to talk a lot about trees, but that sort of invitation to connection through love.
I have a question for you.
Tell me.
With this, like just in the heels of following into this, quote unquote new era of Aquarius and stuff like that, do you think that people are going to need this connection more in order to prosper with their being, well-being, and health? Like, do you think it's going to like amplify and increase?
Yes, it feels it's at like one of these division points right now where Earth can go either way. In terms of, I always kind of feel like Gaia's going to be fine, but humans may not be in that sense of, she can go through her own death cycle for sure, right, on stuff. But I think we need that experience. And I think we can't be told what to do or what to think anymore. There's that deep knowing or craving to actually experience that. And I think that I can tell you what it feels like to have one of those experiences, but it's going to be completely different when you do it for yourself, right? I do breath work a lot. I offer breath work. And every single time someone goes into breath work, I can't tell them what it's going to be like. The moment I find the more I speak, the more I hate it. Because I'm like, I don't actually know what you're going to experience. And one of the things why I love it so much is because it is uniquely theirs, right? Whatever they do experience, whether they connect with spirit, whether they connect with the body, with a past loved one, just with the present moment, it allows them to engage. And breathing, breath, air, very much important here on earth. And as a human being or a living thing, it allows you to have that experience that they own, right? And so it empowers them more into wherever their life is, whatever they're doing. And so I think we're seeing that shift in people seeking out those things. They're maybe longer, and not everybody, but not everyone just wants to be told what to do or how to be happy, or that if they do this, then it's more, they want more invitation into experience. And you can't replicate that in a true way. You can tell, right? Whether you're like, Pam was saying, when you lie, you could just know, right? Like you can tell if something's authentic or not. When you're there in the presence of nature or not. When you're in the presence of an experience or not. Whether you're sitting with a medicine or in a I'm like, what are those things? The sessions, whatever you,
Whatever we do.
whatever we do, these things, right? Like you can't replicate that, right? With outside of just doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I resonate with that. It's like sometimes there's knowledge and thinking things, and then there's the experiential part of it.
What's the one is like, why is water wet? Or what does wet feel like?
For two fish.
Yeah. Or anything, right? But like, how do you describe what wet is?
Right? Especially if it's the same temperature as the air, then you really don't know.
Or just even general, like, what is
just,
wet?
Right? And yeah.
How could you describe wet without saying wet?
Well, I think even for like quantum
Moist.
healing. Moist, that word.
Did you like that creepy stare? Moist.
I always like it for beauty.
Well, I think one of the hardest things, like I think 10 years of doing like quantum healing, body talk stuff, people are like, what do you do? And
Yeah.
or man, I had a session with you and it was so great. And I tried to tell my friends all about it.
Oh, that was
And I'm like, but I can't
worst.
I can't describe it. Like, how do you
Yeah.
describe what you do? I'm like,
I don't know.
I feel
don't-
like nothing kills the magic or joy of like an amazing connection or a session than
Yeah.
try to describe it to someone.
Yeah.
You're like, and then I had sex with the angel. And they're like,
which actually was a session.
okay.
Hey, I voiced my early childhood orgasms, so please, you're...
Yeah, it's fine. But, you know, like, if I say that, there's nothing, it just takes the satisfaction away. Right
Yeah.
away, I'm like, you know, like, I communed with Christ, Jesus. He held
Well,
my
and then
hand and took me up and told me. And I was like, great. And then someone's like, Every time I tell it, I'm like, that sucks.
Yeah,
I wish I
always
hadn't said it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I was gonna say it's about being careful who you share it with, because
Yeah.
the magic can be pulled from it.
Yeah.
Right, and the wisdom. But at the same time, sometimes it's better when somebody's had an experience to just share how they felt
Yeah.
without trying to explain what it is, but how they felt, and maybe not all the details, but how they felt and the changes that were made. And that tends to be the best thing. I'm like, go talk to your friends if
We
they've
did
had
that
session.
lots. When we were first new body talkers and receivers, it was like we had the four of us were together all the
Yeah.
time, and we would have a session. We would all be like, "Okay, what happened in your session? What happened in your session?" We just sit there and powwow
Yeah,
all night
replay.
long and like replay all of our sessions. We did that for the first few years, like nonstop. Every session we had to replay, and we finally realized that it wasn't really.
It's not important
It's
anymore.
not important.
And or do you find that maybe it's again where energy's at, or possibly just where we're at, but it's almost like you don't remember.
Yeah,
Like
I often
it's
tell
like
people like
who
you won't
knows what
remember.
happened. Like it's okay to not recall it. It's okay to not actually know or remember. It's just move forward.
Yeah.
So
I think and that's part of the innocence too that's coming in for this conversation is like in the sense of like what happens in a session. I'm like, I'm only going to verbalize like the things that I'm seeing and feeling for the session. There's so much more that's happening that I can't even tangibly like tell you about because there's no language for it. So like in the innocence of like, let's not try to just think we label it or think that we know all that happened in a session because we caught a few things.
Yeah.
There's so much more. So let's just try to keep our innocence and like knowing that we're just receiving what we can. We're translating as much as we can in this English language. And this maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2% of what's actually happening. And so just being humble in the fact of like, sometimes it's okay just to, not remember and like kind of let it go and not describe because there's so much more and we don't want to like put it in a box.
and
That
just
kind of
a
makes me
simple
think of
observation.
kids too, right? Like
Yeah.
how many hours did you dedicate playing? How many hours did you dedicate to that kind of stuff where you didn't really label it other than like, is this fun or is this not? I was so excited I wanted to stay up all night or, you know, just inviting that invitation back to just being like, you don't have to label it. You don't have to make it mean something. It can mean something, but it doesn't have to, right? And if you can't describe it, it doesn't mean it's less than, right? It's just part of that and allowing yourself to just go into that experience of being alive.
And then it
Oh my
becomes
God,
more
don't
into
let me
the,
talk about being alive.
then it comes more into the energy talking about how do we bring fun versus seriousness. Like
Yeah.
it's and just being, was that pleasurable? Was that fun? And that's it.
What do you think that you guys might do? Just an invitation to manifest for fun for this coming year.
I mean, I know what I want to manifest as an event.
Yeah, but no, that's work. I can
That's
already feel you work. But just fun, in the spirit of that fun, right? And I know that work is fun for you.
it's really fun.
But
I think what's coming forward for me, and I in December had a big transition for my energy and myself, feeling calling into this like death cycle here, and I was like, I looked back at my year and I was like, did I really enjoy my year? Like I achieved some really wicked goals. I did all these things, but like I was kind of, more irritable, more moody. Was I stretched too thin? Was I in the felt sense of just joy and enjoying everything and not feeling like everything was something I had to do? So I'm really making a point. I already feel it's transition, and I notice it firsthand with my kids, because you can't help but be in the present moment and be playful and in certain amounts of joy with them. But I have been finding that I'm enjoying my moments again. Like I've really cultivated and called that back in. So it's not necessarily that I am manifesting or perceiving a specific something to have fun with or at, but it's that I am enjoying my time, every type of time that I am in, whether it's like work or kids or family or friends or this. It's that I am in enjoyment again and really feeling that, because fuck, life is so short.
Yeah.
Like it really is. And so I don't want to not enjoy everything and have a feeling of sure, I'll sit down and play Barbies with you, Juno or Ellie. Like I want to, and not feel like it's now something I have to do. So I've changed a lot of that. That came in December and shifted a lot of that, schedule shifts. And so I feel like I'm really open to just finding my joy again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a question. I can feel the energy coming in, but I don't really know how it's going to look for me, because it's like I don't have the children to kind of bring that play in all the time to remind you of play and that imagination and space. So it is, it's unique. I also don't have a partner, like a life partner, to go do fun adventure things with. So I'm like, oh, how do I really in this kind of solo life? How do I cultivate play daily when you're by yourself? So maybe I'll so I'm just kind of thinking of ideas and what do I want to do? I don't want to make it forceful either.
Yeah, it's another task.
I'm I have to get up in the morning and dance for 10
Play
minutes.
fun.
Yeah, right? Put on a really fun
Are we having
song.
fun yet?
Yeah, so it's going to be something that I'm going to explore this year. And because I know what's coming, I can feel it. I can feel I even for New Year's went to an ecstatic dance event where we had to dress up a little bit. And I was like, well, that was really fun. This kind of dress up event a little bit where I got to wear a slightly different character and maybe picking events that have those kind of things for me too, or being more playful. And I used to imagine and play it, my imagination was really strong as a kid. It still is. So doing it now, not in the work sense, but in just the pleasure sense.
Yeah.
So I'll see what births this year.
I love that.
Yeah.
So would
Keep-
you
keep
say
it
it's
posted.
more whimsical?
Very whimsical.
Whimsy joy play? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I like that. Very back to the kind of fairy nymph
Yeah.
woodland.
Actually, because I love walking through the forest and feeling the fairies and the nymphs and all that kind of stuff. I had my friend in high school, maybe grade 8 or 9. She painted a picture of me with my curly black hair, and she actually painted fairies in my hair, which is really
Cool.
sweet. And I remember I even a couple of days ago I got invited back from nature, and I of course see portals and third eye touches with different blooms and flowers and trees and that kind of thing. So I just want to get more into the fourth dimensional earth magic for play, I think, this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
I love that. I have a big blocker on play. I'm going to own it.
Yeah.
It's just struggles. It's something I struggle with for sure. But I feel that invitation back to the forests is I can feel the fairies being we'll show you, that kind of thing. So I think play for me is creativity, the permission to dream. I really love that. I really love writing, channeled writing and going into that dream, state where magic is possible. It feels right away everything opens up if I let myself go into that. So maybe more along that lines.
How do you play, Robin?
Yeah, how do you play?
For me, now it's music. It's not always been like that, but how do I play? A lot of creativity as well. So whether it's work-wise or whatever the goal, creating something is something that gives me a lot of energy. And then I need a generator and manifestor to do things, because as a projector, I just like to have the idea. Yeah, music.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
I love it. And that as I've been sitting here this whole episode, I've been secretly, clearing some of the air too, so that the play can come out from that deep forest.
Thanks, Jess.
So lots of portals opening. I keep going back. I'm like, we're done yet? Are we done yet? So, yeah. And just sometimes, like we were back talking about, just sometimes it's just the observation that we see that going on in the world. And once it's seen, it has permission to prosper without anybody holding any more, space for it. It just goes.
I feel like the flowers, when you see abandoned cities or abandoned sites and then the flowers come in and stuff grows, it's kind of like that. It feels like a big invitation now to anyone listening and to ourselves as well.
Yeah.
Is just allow it to be, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to like create this like anti-force or the force. You just be that thing, right?
Yeah.
And just do what you're going to do, and it will start to change and lighten and clear that air just naturally.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear if anyone, as they're listening, if they feel called to share what their invitation to play is or what that might look like for them, or innocence, what innocence means. And return to innocence.
As you're clearing the air, I'm feeling that there are new energies like descending onto earth that are going to help with that. Like they're like, oh yeah, let's they can actually come into a more denser place because the air feels a bit clearer now. They couldn't actually get here as much. It feels like.
And there's
the
a
portals
reinvigoration
weren't
from below
open.
as well.
So I'm totally feeling that. Like I'm feeling they're just hovering pretty close to the ground right now, but they just need a little bit more work on that kind of closer to the surface type of air cleansing, and then they'll be on the planet here.
It might mirror into the grid too.
Yeah.
The crystalline grid.
Yeah.
I can feel it coming up from the roots as well.
Me
from
too.
Below,
It's
like
deep.
opening up. Yeah. As that port of that before, in the sense of like, if you don't believe in it, it can't exist, that kind of thing. It's like, as we're opening up the beliefs in people, then this energy can come up from below as well, and opening.
So this is
go.
I was just saying that's the energy of because we're feeling these energies kind of come in through the portals to bring play and fun. And like, this is that energy of like trusting your yes, then not like trying to be like, oh, what should I do? But like, the energies are here. Lean into your intuition going, oh yeah, that's a yes for me. This movement is a yes for me. That song is a yes for me. This hike with that, and hugging that tree is a yes for me. And just moving it through your gut response too.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right.
Well, there's another one that went by really fast.
All about innocence and play. Thanks,
All about
ladies.
innocence and play.
Fairies,
Look for us.
acknowledging the fairies.
Yes,
and
I
the other
know.
woodland creatures that came in. Thank you.
Yeah.
Connect with us here. Connect with us. Three Fates podcast. Website coming up. All socials. YouTube here. So
Love it.
much love.
We go forward and play.
Go play.
Yay!